Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Martin from the UK, just outside London. I was, I suppose, your classic English teacher, and working different ESL schools, and then got into podcasting, and now I run this podcast, Rock and Roll English, which is how I sort of communicate with my audience. And yeah, I also lecture at a university in London, which is where I am now. So if a cleaner comes in, everyone, or anything, or someone disturbs me for a second, please forgive me. It will just be a second. Hello. Yeah, that was my intro. Sorry, it probably wasn't the best intro
Okay.
in the world.
No worries, no
I'm never
worries.
very good at those intro things.
No, you should be really good at it. No, you do. I guess you do very quick intro. Using podcast at the beginning, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, I can ask a few questions, and if the audience has questions too, if you want to ask, know more about Martin's story, feel free to do that. So, just to kind of dive deeper into this, so you're a traditional teacher, right? You've been teaching, and this has been your career.
Yeah, well, I took a career change quite early on, but after that, since 2010, yeah, I was just working. I was living in Italy and just teaching in
Okay.
just ESL schools there. Yeah, and I mean, it was good. I got lots of experience, but then, yeah, I obviously wanted to try and do more.
Yeah. And then maybe you can, because we talk about podcasting today, maybe you can talk a little bit. How do you get started? So what gets you on podcasting? How do you feel at first, and then what's going on now? We can talk about that too.
So the thing that got me started was I got into podcasts quite early, I think, because or even now it's maybe a bit of acquired taste. So I got into podcasts quite early, and I kind of thought, I think I could do something like that. And then, I mean, by the time of having that idea, I think in 2013 is when I tried messing around recording with a few podcasts, but the podcast didn't come out until 2017. So for nearly 4 years, I was sitting on this idea, but I was basically too scared to make the jump and actually publish something, because I thought, what are my friends going to think? What are my family going to think? Oh, they'll think I'm an idiot. They'll think, who do you think you are? And all of the sort of imposter syndrome stuff that is quite normal. And yeah, I think one of your questions was like, how was it at the beginning? I still remember the very first time I was in my apartment in Italy, and I was recording like the intro. So it was obviously just me talking to the computer. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is so strange. Now I do it all the time. I record things, but that just talking to the computer or to the microphone, I remember thinking, oh my God, I hope my neighbors don't hear me. I think like he's losing his mind and stuff like this. But then, yeah, you just grow in confidence. And like I said, it took me nearly 4 years to actually release a podcast, which thinking back is just ridiculous. So a quote that I really like, actually, and is very much the case with me, is you don't need to be great to start, but if you want to be great, you need to start. So basically, there's no way you're going to get to like a good level unless you actually just do it. And if you just waste time like I did, then that's definitely not advisable.
Yeah. So it's so nice to hear that you set on that idea for 4 years, and you recorded, you didn't release it for 2 years, right? I guess I want to ask the audience as well. I know the reason you guys are here, I guess very likely you're interested in podcasting, and maybe thinking about starting yours, or maybe have already started. So if you can put in the chat, let us know. How long have you been thinking about podcasting? Are you doing podcasts already, or you've been thinking about it for how long? And what stopped you from taking action and doing podcasting? If you want to share that with us in the chat, feel free to do that. I mean, you can see there was a struggle for Martin at the beginning too, right? So
Absolutely.
usually we don't talk about that, because when you are doing great, people are gonna just only see where you are right now, who you are right now. They don't really take, or they don't really see what was what it was like before. So I think it's great to talk about these stories so people know, oh, I've been sitting on that idea for 2 months, but nothing compared to 4 years, right? So
Exactly.
that's how we're gonna inspire people about the idea. So anyone, if you want to share in the chat, let us know. Have you been considering podcasting? If you are, how long has it been? If you have started podcasting, let us know too, so we know there are people, teachers already also started podcasting. That'll be great. Okay. So there's one question, one comment from Joy. Hey Joy, only just started thinking, maybe ideas been popping into my head for a couple of months. Okay, good. You still got time, Joy. You can give yourself 4 years, I guess. Some ideas. Okay, Joy. Thanks for sharing that. Alan, good advice. Yes, I know the feeling regarding starting. I started thinking about it about 3 weeks ago, and just started with a little help, as you both well know. Thank you,
Yeah.
Alan.
Hello, Alan.
Boy, appreciate that. Yeah. Anyone else, if you want to comment, let us know. So I guess I also want you to talk about the present. So maybe how long have you been podcasting? How many podcasts you have? What's the status right now? The downloads, the student community, like the results you've got because of podcasting. I think that can also be inspiring to a lot of teachers too. What do you think, Martin?
Yeah, so I just wanted to just quickly mention just one thing on Joy's comment there about if you've got some ideas. I think the great thing, which is kind of what I did, but for 4 years, but the great thing if you're a teacher is you already have students. So if you want to start a podcast where you've got different ideas, record some things and just give it to your students. That's how my podcast started. Every lesson, my homework for students was listen to my podcast, and then like write something about it. So you've already got an audience if you're a teacher because you've got students. Maybe you've got students that from years ago. So I think as teachers that is a real benefit that we have. But so yeah, in terms of now, so yeah, I've got over 300 free episodes that I've made, but I've also now got a paid community where people pay for extra content. And when I first did that, I was making 6 podcasts a week in my paid community because I was kind of like, oh my God, if someone's paying for something, I need to deliver so much. And obviously was ridiculously over delivering. So there are like more than 1,000 podcasts in the paid area now. But so you mentioned about downloads. So I mean, some people like huge podcasts probably get hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of downloads. But the great thing about podcasts is you don't need a huge audience to make money because you make such connection with those people. Because this is why I prefer podcasting to like other things like social media, because if you listen to a podcast, people are willing to give you their time. Like on Instagram, people probably give you 3 seconds before they flick and they go to the next one. If someone clicks on your podcast, they'll probably give you 10 minutes, something around about that, I would say. So yeah, I mean, my downloads are kind of like probably like 5 to 10,000 an episode, which isn't huge at all. But for example, I started my paid community when I was getting like 1,000 downloads an episode. But like, because I always think with podcasting, you make an almost personal relationship with that person because it's just that person with their headphones and you. And it's like you can talk directly to them. And every time I talk to maybe someone that joins my paid community or something, the first thing they always say to me is, I feel like I already know you. Because it's like you're spending so much time with them in a way. And I'm the same. I'm a big podcast fan, and I listen to podcasts of like really famous people and things. And yeah, I feel like I know them. I feel like if we went for a drink in the pub, like I would know them already because you kind of have that relationship. So the trust you build via podcasts, I don't think there's a platform that allows you to do that.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's great.
Yeah,
And because realistically, I don't think I'm going to be like getting more downloads than the BBC podcasts and something, but just having even a small number of downloads, you can still, because like you can still get results because you're building that relationship and people trust you.
Yeah. All right, thanks for sharing that, Martin. Just to clarify for people who are not familiar with the podcasting, so the downloads, so everyone who listens to your podcast, that's a one download, right?
Yeah.
So actually, that's a question Alan had. If it sounds like, it feels like people listen to our podcast, they want to download, then that's a download. It's not. Everyone listen to your podcast, that's a download. So when we say 1,000 downloads, that would be like fair to say about 1,000 people listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of statistics. Some people don't understand when it comes to podcasting. That's great. Just want to clarify that. Second thing I want to comment on will be when we first started working together, I was not very familiar with podcasts. I know you already kind of built a very good community with podcasts, and I think only when I work with you, I start feeling okay and agree with you. The relationship you can have with your community is so much better than social media if they are from your podcast, because I can see, you told me like in your membership area, there are people staying for 3, 4, 7, like 5 years, right? Long. And I
6 years. It's
Yeah,
been going
6
6
years.
years, and there's a large number of people that have been there since day one.
Yeah. So that's the type of relationship we can build with the podcast, right? That's number one. Number two, another thing that surprised me, I don't know if you remember, is that when you do the sales calls with these people, right? And I think the conversion is much higher than I was expect, because just like you said, when the students get in the call and talk to you, they already know you. So that amount of trust that we built is like, hey, tell me what you can do to offer me, as long as you can afford, because hey, I want to do it, right? So that's really another way to show me how much trust, and just like what you said, you can build through podcasting. So now we already kind of transition to the next kind of topic, talking about the differences between podcast and social media. So one of the things you comment already is the relationship, like a deeper relationship you can build with your listeners through podcasting, because that's just you and me, like a headset. Right? That's amazing. So anything else, like I know you are on both the podcast and also social media, anything else, like the differences you want to mention that are very significant to you, that you can share a little bit today?
Well, so as I mentioned, the attention span of people, of how much time they give you, but also how you want to deliver your message. You might have something wonderful to say, but if you're making an Instagram video, you've got to say it in like 20 seconds. Whilst if you've got a podcast, you can take time to actually talk about that and explain it, and people can really actually benefit, instead of just giving them this like really short thing, and maybe you're jumping around in the video because you have to get attention. And so you mentioned I am on social media, but I never really get a lot. I can never be consistent, just because I really don't enjoy it so much. Like the whole filming yourself, like it's just, for me, and maybe for people that are a bit more reserved, it's so much easier behind a microphone. Like for example, when at different times I've sort of thought I'm going to try and do some social media, and then I thought I'm going to do a video every day. You wake up some days and you just think, I don't want to make a video today. I do not want to film myself. Like, I've got young kids, haven't slept. The last thing I want to do is take my phone and start filming myself. But with a podcast, like, you can just hide behind that. So I think it's a great way to get started as well, because lots of people, so myself included, are too embarrassed immediately to go like online and like film themselves. So when I launched my podcast, finally, after 4 years, I had a cartoon image of me on my website, so I was too embarrassed to have like my actual face. And then it was just my voice on the mic. So you can kind of like hide behind it. And then you, certainly was the case with me, you have the time to grow in confidence. Like, you're getting some downloads, you're getting some traction, and then you can start thinking, well, actually, like, what, maybe I will make a video, because your confidence is growing. But just certainly for me, and I think for a lot of people, if someone says, well, I'm going to start something, day one, I'm going to be filming myself, that's really difficult. So yeah, podcasting for me is it's so much better. And like the things that we mentioned as well about the trust, like, because you get so many people flicking through social media and everyone's trying to get your attention. But that's very, very different to like being recommended a podcast, or you're on someone else's podcast, someone hears about you and they check out your podcast. And the algorithms now also on podcasts are getting better and better. So as well, if you're as well, I know like niche teaching, if you're teaching like medical professionals, so medical professionals English, something like that, if your podcast has a similar name to that, that's going to come up immediately in the search. So people will find your podcast much easier than you think, especially if it's like some good SEO, as in like it's got the keywords of your niche in there, then you're going to come up very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for summarizing the differences, the major differences between podcasting and social media. Because a lot of, at least in our community, we focus a lot on social media, like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And I think we just started talking about podcasting because we see a lot of interest in podcasting. And I think it also depends on the preference, right? Some teachers might not like recording videos, audios, but some teachers
It's
might
tough,
benefit from doing this because they don't like videos, they don't like to constantly just creating this content out there, right? So just to give maybe more context right now with your podcasting, like what is the frequency you publish your podcast, and what is the kind of average length, and how much time you spend, that type of thing can be helpful for teachers who are considering it.
Yeah. So just one more thing on that, which kind of connected to both of these questions, is editing a podcast is a million times easier than editing a video. A million times easier and a million times faster. Like I've done this in the past. I've spent hours like editing a video and it gets like 10 likes from like my close family and friends, and that's it. And you think, what a waste of time. With a podcast, it's so much easier. But so in response to your question, how often? So when I first started, just because I saw my favorite podcast was Monday and Thursday, I used to do Monday and Thursday. I did that for about 6 months. And then I kind of thought, oh, this maybe is a bit much. Then I went every Monday, and it was like that until sort of probably about a year ago, where now I do every 2 Mondays, every 2 weeks. But that every Monday, so I did that every single Monday for about 4 or 5 years. And the only Monday I missed was when I got married. And then it came out on Tuesday instead of Monday. So like consistency, and this is the key to having a successful podcast, is consistency. And a brilliant statistic of this is it's something like 92, it's definitely more than 90% of podcasts don't get past episode 6, because people make 6 podcasts and then they think, oh, I'm only getting 20 downloads, and then they stop. So if you make more than 6 episodes, so if you make 10 episodes of your podcast, you're already in like the top 10% of podcasts in the world. My podcast is in like the top 1% or something. And like I said, I'm not getting millions of downloads, but it's in the top 1% of podcasts in the world, because I've done it consistently over a long time. So you don't really need, you just need to turn up, and then you immediately get success.
For sure. Yeah, I just wanted to call out Alan. Alan just started his podcast. Let's pass 6, at least, Alan. Let's pass 6. All right, so some questions for you before we move on. Bash wanted to know from a technical aspect, what are technology requirements?
Again, so really easy. I definitely do not consider myself like a techie person at all. And since day one of the podcast, I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. So you need a USB microphone, and that you just literally just plug straight into your USB of your computer, and then you hit record, and then you start going. And you can get, in fact, my favorite mic, I've got a mic now, which is like in dollars more than $400. But my old mic, which was less than $100, I actually prefer, and I actually wish I hadn't spent that money. So you can get a really good mic for less than $100. Then you need your podcast platform, which is like $100 a year. And that's it. You need something to record your voice. I use Audacity, that's free. And it's really simple. You just record and then you can just stop, delete. You can watch the tutorial on YouTube. And for example, Audacity, you can do a million things with that program. I do about 3 things, which is like record, stop, delete, and that's it. So maybe if I'm doing the intro and I say, hello everyone and welcome to another. Oh, sorry. Let me do that again. Stop. Delete. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English. Like that's the kind of simple things that I'm doing. If I say something wrong, I just like stop and then go back. And I also do lots of conversations. And if you wanted to make it really easy, you could just even record the conversation on Zoom and it records the audio. I've done that loads of times. There is a way to do it where the audio is a bit better. Here's another tip actually, is don't worry too much about the small things. So for example, in my 4 years where I was thinking, oh, what should I do? I was worrying about the logo and the intro music like that. It's all a waste of time. No one cares. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I used to worry so much about the quality of audio, and I was making all these, and it was taking me hours, and it was ridiculous. And then because the Zoom audio, the quality is not as good as a different way of doing it. And then once I put the Zoom audio out and I said to my audience, did you notice any difference? And they said no. So it's like, in my head, it's like, oh my God, the audio is so bad. No one's going to listen to this. I asked the audience, they were like, didn't even notice. So yeah, if you want to record conversations on Zoom, that will be fine.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. They're very encouraging. Okay, so one more question before we move on. Florina got inspired by joining the Teacher Summit you were on, listening to your podcast, and that's why she's here. So she said, would you say that one episode per week will be enough to start with?
100%. That's perfect. But just make sure that you do that whatever your day is. In my mind, I always chose a Monday because in my mind, I'm just thinking about me as a podcast listener. You listen like when you travel to work. I don't really listen to many podcasts maybe at the weekend. So in my mind, it's like if I put it out on Monday, they've got all week to listen to that episode. So I put my podcast out on a Monday. I've got no statistics saying that is the best way to do it. That's just the way I do it. But that would be perfect. Just make sure it's there every Monday. Like my podcast, like I said, even if the world was ending, that podcast would be out Monday morning. And if you can do that, like I said, if you just get past episode 6, you're already in the top 10% of podcasts in the world. So
it's good. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. One episode. So one more question before we move on to the next topic. Some teachers might be curious about this in terms of length. I know there are podcasts that are really long, like couple, maybe even 1 hour, 2 hours, or some 40 minutes. And there are shorter ones like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. So what would be your recommendation? What do you usually do?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. It's like how long is a piece of string kind of thing. But I generally aim for 20 to 30 minutes kind of thing. That's, and sometimes a bit long, sometimes maybe 20 to 40. But I would say the majority are 20 to 30. But, I've got others where I've even done episodes of like less than a minute, because what I also do as well, I use my podcast as almost like an email list as well. So if I've got something happening, I'll just make a quick 1 minute podcast and say, just to let you know, I'm doing a workshop next week. That's the link's in the episode, so then they can stop what they're listening to and click on the link. But yeah, I would, in my opinion, sort of 20 to 40, I would say is somewhere good. Because the thing is, you don't want it too short, like your standard episode of like 5 minutes, because when people listen to a podcast, like they want to just press play and just let it go. If you're changing every 5 minutes, so I would say somewhere 20 to 40. But yeah, like when it gets to like 2 hours, that for me is too long. I wouldn't listen to 2 hours.
Yeah, that's right. And also, I guess depending on your audience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How long they would prefer and then you can always adjust the frequency, right? So I think these are also very tailored to your
Yeah.
audience, what you want to talk about. But for teachers who teach English, and this can be a good kind of a benchmark, right? Because that's what you
Yeah.
do their English podcast. Okay, so and we're gonna talk a lot more about like more practical tips and also answer questions in our in podcasting webinar. So I'm gonna share the link just in case you haven't registered. Share the link with you. Make sure you register now. And if you don't have time to join us live, you can receive recording when you register, because we get an email from you. We're gonna send you the recording. Okay, make sure you register. So this is about podcasts and social media. We've already talked a lot of the kind of benefits of podcast, deeper relationship, and also like how you feel about podcasting and social media, the competition. And I think podcasting is still growing, right? So there's a lot of opportunities there too. If for teachers who are interested and want to give it a try, I think now is still a good time to do that. So we're gonna move on to the next topic. I just and also for those of you who haven't liked this interview, please give us a like. So that help us with the algorithm. We're on social media. Although we are not talking, we are talking down on social media, we're still on social media. So give us a like so more people can see this interview in their feed. Okay. So um, I guess the next topic we already covered it a little bit, like how to get started with podcasting, and some teachers ask about the equipment, and you also talk about recording, like editing, and I think another thing a lot of teachers probably don't understand, because there are a lot of places people can listen to podcasts. Do I need to upload my podcasts to every platform like myself, or there's a better way to do that? How the podcast is distributed to your listeners?
Yeah, so you have like a podcast host, I believe. I think that's the name. As I said, I'm not really a techie person, but so you have a podcast host. I use Podbean. I upload my podcast there, and then Podbean distributes it to all of the podcast apps. So like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pod Addicts. I can't remember. There's so many of them, but they go to literally all of them. For I believe Apple and Spotify, you do have to click one or two things, but it literally just it's really simple. Like I said, if I can do it, anyone can, because I'm really not so good with technology. But it just says like, do you want to upload to Spotify? You click yes. It's really simple. So yeah, it's also really good for that. Like again, if you're on social media, maybe you make a video and you want to post it to TikTok, to Facebook, to Instagram. I know that there are things you can use that do it to all of them, but it's just so easy. You just upload that audio file, upload it there. You choose when you want it to come out. You schedule it. So I would always schedule mine at 1 minute past midnight on a Monday. It's like Monday morning, 1 minute past midnight, and then it's there. And as well, if you're organized, I'm not so organized, you can batch your content. So you could make like 8 episodes in a day, and then you've got 8 weeks of content already made, and you can take a break for a few weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah, batching. So you're not batching, are you?
I have done it in the past, but I'm just not the most organized person. I'm rock and roll English. It's all rock and roll. It's batching's not rock and roll.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a question from Steffi. So what's the difference in the process between doing a solo podcast and having a guest?
So yeah, obviously when you're a guest, it is a bit more difficult and a bit more strange because you're just talking to yourself essentially. This is actually a mindset thing. You have to change your thing. I'm talking to someone. Like imagine you're talking to someone, because like I said, that first time I had just to talk to the computer in that empty room was very strange for me. And then when I record it by myself, maybe I'm a bit more like conscientious of, if I make a mistake, then I'll maybe stop and go back, delete the mistake, and then continue from what I was saying. Whilst if it's a conversation, it's just obviously a bit more flowing. And there are like a technical thing, but as I said, to keep it simple, just record it on Zoom. and then Zoom will give you the audio file, and then you can just upload that. And you can just add an intro. This is how a standard podcast of mine works. I make an intro of just me talking for like 2 minutes. Then there's the conversation, and then I have an outro where I kind of like analyze the like grammar and vocabulary in the conversation, and that's it. So you could steal that formula. You've got you make an intro, you have the conversation, and then you make an outro of just you, and just use the Zoom recording, and then you're away. And like I said, you would have to use Audacity or something like that to get the tracks together. I know that probably sounds complicated, but it really is not at all. It's really simple. You just literally upload the track, and then it's there, and then you just record the intro and outro. It's really simple.
Yeah, a question from Steffi. Is the intro the same for every podcast?
So the intro, as in the music, is I got that from Fiverr. That was one of the things I was really worried about before. I paid someone to record that. It is actually a bit ridiculous, but I don't want to change it now. But anyway, so the music is the same, but the actual what I say is not. So like I'll always begin the episode with "Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number," and then like 198. And then I say, in today's episode, I'm talking to James, and we talk about this. And then I might, if I've got like a course out or something, I might mention that. I'll mention a few things at the beginning, and then we have the conversation. And then I kind of like do the outro again, when I might remind them of whatever's going on.
Gotcha. So the intro, outro, and the actual episode are recorded separately, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
It's certainly for mine. That's like minutes, because I'll always record the conversation first, and then based on what we spoke about, I would say. So let's say I'm releasing this audio on my podcast. I'll say, "Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 321, where I talk to James, and we talk about podcasting, what you can do on social media, blah 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 blah." And then I always say, "Happy listening," and then it will go into the conversation.
All right, so you need to share your podcast in the chat before you go, so people can actually listen to it. It's quite interesting. All right, yeah. So going back to the guests, we haven't talked about the guests. So how does that work? You just do a live a Zoom session, right, with the guests, and record. That's how it works.
Yeah. I often actually record with like my close friends, and we have a conversation. But the best way to grow your podcast is to get on other people's podcasts and have other people on your podcast. And the other great thing is certainly if you're doing it and teaching English, everyone is so friendly in the podcasting world. So everyone's like, "Yeah, sure, come on my podcast. I'll come on yours." So yeah, you just arrange a time to meet, and then have a chat on Zoom or whatever. You can pay for things, which makes the process a bit easier. One is called Riverside, for example. I don't. I still do the old, let's say, traditional way. I use Zoom. I get people to record locally, which I know sounds complicated. I don't know if I should go into this because I don't want to confuse people, but it's really not. So that would mean I record my audio with headphones, and if I'm talking to you, James, you would record your audio with headphones, and then you send me your audio, and then I would just put both the tracks together. It just makes the quality a bit better. But as I said, if that sounds complicated,
that's not a conversation, is it?
It is, because you record. So you press. What I do is I'll say, "Press record on go. 3, 2, 1, go," and you record just your voice, and I record just my voice. But because we're having a conversation, when I put those tracks together, when I'm talking, yours will be silent. And then when you're talking, mine will be silent, because they match up perfectly.
I think that's the next level. That's the next level.
It sounds complicated, so that's why I said just use Zoom. You'll be fine. And if you want high quality, you can pay for Riverside, but keep it simple. Just use Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. That's great. So Steffi, where is the intro to your podcast in general? What does it mean? where is the intro to your podcast in general? So you record intro, then you just edit them together, right? So the intro is different depending on the content. So basically, you record the conversation first, and then you record the intro to introduce this conversation. So you're introducing yourself, right? So then you record extra outro, then to remind people the call to action, right?
So, like the call to actions. And in the outro, I normally look at vocabulary and grammar. So I'll say, for example, in the conversation, James used this English expression. He said, I didn't have a leg to stand on. And this means that you don't have something that can support your argument. So I'll listen to the conversation and then sort of use that in the outro. And like you said, also remind them of courses or anything else going on.
So to your question, Steffi, every podcast has a description, a short kind of description, right? They kind of explains and tell people what this about. This episode is about.
So, but once you've got a bit of a following, anyway, people just listen. It's just like everyone always says to me, like, because mine on Mondays, I say like every Monday, it's like the first thing I look forward to. Like it's Monday morning, Rock and Roll English is coming out. So I don't think people sort of look that specifically at the description.
For new ones, right? New listeners, like when they explore different podcasts, they listen to, they're gonna check the description.
Definitely, but I would say the one thing to be mindful of is your title. You want your title is like clear to what it is as possible, because I know people say it's wrong, and it is wrong, but like the judge a book by its cover, like everyone does that. And when I say cover, I don't mean the artwork of the thumbnail. Don't worry about that, just the title. So if, for example, if I'm looking to relieve stress, so I would just type in the podcast thing like relieve stress. So if your podcast is like relieve stress in 5 minutes a day, then you're going to come up and people are going to click on it. I don't think they're going to click. They will look at the description probably, but it's probably not. The title, I would say, is more important.
The title.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks for sharing so much so far. If you guys have more questions, leave it in the chat, and we'll try to answer them as we go. All right. So we have the last part. I want to talk about something not very much related to podcasting, but very much related to having a business, having a teaching business, have a successful business. So, with Martin, right, we worked together last year, and I remember we had a really good launch. We made over $10,000 a month just from that single launch, and then the membership has been growing, and the digital course and all that is working. I think it's all because of the podcast. It's all the audience you can build through podcasting, and also because the fact that you can be consistent. Is that 4 years in a row, Monday morning, the only day that you didn't post, didn't release the podcast is your wedding day, right? So that type of commitment is important for every single business. And when I ask you, hey Martin, what is your biggest takeaway from the journey? You mentioned something I found very, very interesting, and also wanted to share, talk a little bit about it. Is that you said you need to truly love and believe what you're selling, right? So I want you to kind of comment on that. So when it comes to selling, how do you feel that? Why do you think that's the biggest takeaway from the business so far?
So as actual business part, not so much for like podcasting, but the actual business. So I had thought about different online courses before, and I had a membership area, which I still have. And even when I was sort of promoting that, I would sometimes still think like, I don't know if this is like almost life changing. And then with working with James, which like I want to mention, James not only helped me with the launch and stuff, he actually helped me like with the course, because I remember sort of running some ideas by you, and I remember you said, no, like this thing about understanding really fast spoken English is like sounds really good. And that was then sort of like helped me go down that path. And so just doing that, once I had that, and then I built this course, and truly even now think it's like the best thing I've ever done, and I know, and it's already helped people, and I just it just makes selling it so much easier, because before I would always maybe feel like a bit sleazy or something like that, but now I know, and I built this thing. It helps people so much. It is life changing. So, and this sort of a mindset thing. The way I see it now is like, I need to tell people about this, because they need to know, because this is going to make a big change in their lives, and that just makes selling so much easier. If you're selling something where you're thinking like, well, it's okay, it comes through. But once you've got that, whatever it is which you truly believe, it's just it just shows through in everything you do.
Yeah, so I think that relates to the niche, who you work with and what type of problems you solve for them, and do you truly love and believe in what you do, right? And then you make a program, offer, digital course, whatever you do, you believe in it, you truly kind of believe in that idea, and you're seeing impact, you're seeing results that kind of change the way you see selling sales. Because I remember when we first worked together, it was not easy to I think you had a lot of sales mindset thing, kind of work against with a lot of things when it comes to sales, because you feel that was you. I think now you're saying it was because the whatever you sell, that is not very much aligned with your calling, your passion, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because once you, like I said, once you've got that thing, you truly believe it, like for me, it just changed everything. And like whilst before, and again, this is something James helped me with, I kind of, I was making podcasts, I had like some success, had people listening, but I still just didn't really realize, like, couldn't understand what direction I was going in like a way to specifically help people. Like, I wouldn't say my podcast is like a niche, but like now everything I do, I've got like a kind of niche in mind now. And so not only, like you mentioned, I had that obviously really successful course launch, and like I've got like systems in place now, but it just makes me so much more confident doing things like going forward. Because before, again, I had my membership area, but I'd never made a digital course before. And like you said, it was only last year. It was it? Yeah, it was last year.
Sure.
It was, so I think it was about June where my course came out, and since then, I think I've got like another another two courses that I've made in this like space of like just 12 months, 2 extra courses now, whilst in the like 5 or 6 years before, it was like the one thing I wanted to do, but I'd never managed to do it. But so it's just like the confidence again. It's sort of similar to the podcast. It's like once you've done it, I spent 4 years trying to think of this podcast and stuff, but then once you've done it, it's just confidence builds, and then you know what you're doing. So like now I feel like I can just launch a course just like easily without even thinking about it.
And also, I think you find a good kind of spot, or the
exactly.
topic you are really passionate about, you really like about the fast speak English, which is a very good idea. It's good. All right. So anyone else has questions, feel free to drop in the comments about podcasting, about Martin. Martin, I don't know, where can people find your podcast?
So I was just trying to find this actually. So this is my website. Join
You can
the chat.
maybe share your website if that okay with you.
I'm just trying to connect though.
Yep. Don't worry, just put in the chat and I can copy it too.
But to actually go in the chat is not really letting me.
Okay.
I'm just trying to click on some things that, as I said, I'm not really a tech person. But if you just search Rock and Roll English on Google,
I have it. And then
then
go to
you
the
will
podcast
find it.
page. Yep.
Yeah.
Let me show that. So this is Martin's website and the podcast episodes.
Yes.
You
Sorry,
can feel free
it's cut out
to
for a minute.
listen to them. Yep. Popping.
That's so you've put a link to the website, which which is obviously fine. I've got 99% of my podcasts there, but I have been quite lazy in recent weeks of not uploading them to the actual website, because people listen on their podcast apps. I don't think really anyone actually clicks the website and goes to listen to it, but I normally have them there for show notes and stuff, but I have been a bit lazy recently. Again, that's the great thing about podcasting, is like the workload is so much less than other things. So you can just literally just record that audio file, upload it to the podcast app, and you could even stop there. You don't even need a website.
Yes, and also, if you want to listen to Martin's podcast, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can just look for Rock and Roll English, and you should be able to see it too. So it's in the database. But anyways, anyone else has any questions or for us? And I don't know, Martin, do you have anything else to share about podcasting, about the business, or anything that you feel like you want to share with the teachers who are interested in podcasting, watching this interview live or the recording?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say go for it for podcasting, but I also want to throw an invite out. If anyone makes a new podcast, like, just contact me and I'll be happy to have you on my podcast. So then again, with your students, so even if you send it to 20 students, okay, and then if they like it, they're going to tell people. So then this is how you're building your audience from nothing already. So I'd imagine you've probably got more than 20 people you can send it to. Let's just start at 20. You've only got 20 people. You send it to them. They're going to send it to other people. You can come on my podcast immediately. So you've got like, between 5,000 to 10,000 people that are going to listen to you. And then you can talk about your podcast. That's one way to promote it. So I just want to show people that it really actually isn't that difficult to actually have success. And like I said, you get past episode 6 and you're already in the top 10 in the world anyway.
Gotcha. And then question, how long were your podcasts when you were doing them solo without guests in the early days?
So my podcast has always been with guests. Episode 1, I had a guest, which, like I said, it was friends though, I wasn't contacting like other English teachers. It was like friends. And the idea being I would have a normal conversation with a friend, because I may be talking a bit of like teacher voice, maybe even maybe what I'm doing now, because you want to be clear when you're on a podcast, whilst my friends will just be talking like this, just and then so that was the whole point of then like talking about how maybe they were talking. So I've had guests on since the beginning. I found it easier, to be honest, because certainly starting out, like a solo podcast for me was quite difficult. I didn't really have my podcast voice. And yeah, if anyone wants to do this, if anyone listens to episode 1 of my podcast to episode like whatever I'm on now, you would think it's a different person, because you find like your podcasting voice, the way I was talking, I was sort of quite conscious of like, it was for English learners and I was talking a bit like this, really slowly, and it just sounds so ridiculous. Whilst now, like, you speak with confidence because you've done it so many times. So yeah, I got no problem with solo podcasts. I have, when I do that, I have like a document. I just have some points. What you don't want to do is read, because people will be able to understand that. If you're reading, people just understand. So you just want some points which you know what you're talking about, and then just talk. Don't read if you're doing a solo podcast, would be my advice.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, thank you again, Martin, for being on this interview. I know you had to stay at school.
Yeah.
You had to stay at school for this interview. I really appreciate that.
There's just a question there from Florina. Did you do any type of voice training? Like, absolutely no. No, it's just one of those things of you just get better by doing it. The quote I said again at the beginning, you don't need to be great to start, but if you want to be great, you need to start. It's a really common thing. I've heard all podcasters say this. You listen to the first episode and it just takes a few episodes. I wouldn't say like hundreds, but I would say maybe even 50 odd, before you start feeling a bit more confident in your voice. But no, I've done no voice training or acting or anything like that at all. And to be honest, I don't think most podcasters have. When you talk to them, and you listen to lots of other people, and you think, oh wow, like listen to their voice. It's just because they do it a lot. It's as simple as that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So before we go, right, just one last reminder of the webinar. So if you have more questions, you're watching this recording or you're live here right now, if you have more questions for us about podcasting, I would highly recommend you join and sign up to the website, the webinar. Even if you cannot join us live, we're gonna send you the recording. So in the webinar, we're gonna spend 2 hours talking about podcasts, not only just the practical tips. We're gonna also talk about steps, things you need to know, and the things, mistakes probably made with podcasting, and to help you get started with podcasting. All right, make sure you sign up with the link I'm sharing right now in the chat. Okay, in the chat, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks exact 2 weeks. And me and Martin gonna be there hosting the webinar and share more with you guys. And thank you again, Martin, for being here today, and really appreciate
Thanks for
that.
having me. Thanks for having me.
That, and hopefully there are more people can get inspired and start podcasts, and they can reach out to you, and you can be the guest for them. And I hope to see that. I would love to see that happening in our community. Thank you again, and thanks everyone for watching and for being here today, spending time with us. Make sure join us in the webinar. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Everyone. Bye bye.